Welcome, everyone. CCC is very happy today to welcome curriculum developers from across the U.S., as well as top influencers at leading education technology companies, to this special program about the often challenging process of obtaining permissions to reuse copyright content. Hello, my name is Christopher Keneally with CCC, and over the next half hour, and leaving time for your questions, we will hear how one such organization, breaking new ground in reading and literary programs around the world, has streamlined its permission process with the annual copyright license for curriculum and instruction, now available from CCC. Whether instruction happens in physical spaces or online, curriculum developers employ an array of approaches that require access to and delivery of high-quality content from leading book, magazine, and news publishers. The annual copyright license for curriculum and instruction, now available from CCC, lets curriculum developers easily incorporate these important content excerpts into their latest curriculum materials. The repertory license eases the burden of obtaining individual licenses from individual publishers. And for remote instruction, the annual copyright license for curriculum and instruction provides a well-defined, flexible set of rights that supports virtual instruction. Joining me on this webcast are Emma House, Head of Publisher Relations for Symbi, a curriculum developer with a mission to empower reading for good. Welcome to the program, Emma.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Also on the program is my colleague at CCC, Roy Kaufman, Managing Director of Business Development. Welcome to the program, Roy.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here and happy to be on a panel with Emma again. It feels like times.
Well, we are happy to have both of you joining us today and our audience of curriculum developers. So Roy, let's get to it. You've worked with CCC for many years with our colleagues on developing licensing solutions that serve the K-12 market. And indeed, when the pandemic closed classrooms across the country last March, CCC offered a no-fee educational continuity license that let educators in the U.S. use publishers' materials in distance learning models. So why did CCC choose to develop this new K-12 licensing solution?
Chris, first of all, I just want to say the education continuity license is definitely a proud moment in my career. But CCC was founded in 1978. And historically, we were known for licensing mainly in higher education in the corporate markets. About 8 or 9 years ago, we had these new educational standards in the United States. There was the Common Core, and then the related state standards that often look like Common Core but have a different name. And these standards had some commonalities with respect to English language arts, especially. They required that students, whether in the classroom or on assessment, respond and react and learn from what's called authentic content. So third-party permissioned content, materials not written for pedagogical purposes or assessment purposes. We were contacted back then by the state of Washington on behalf of Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. We created a collective license for them around assessment because they needed so much content so quickly, and the traditional permissions methods would have been very slow for them. We came out with this license really fast. My colleague Andrew Campana and I started going around to thought leaders in education to talk about what we did, and they all looked at us and said, "Hey, that's great, kids. What are you going to do about the classroom?" So we've been working on different classroom solutions since then. We started by working with the state of Louisiana and a partner called Xanadu around the Louisiana Believes OER curriculum. Then we worked with Washington, D.C., who was trying to create a local and diverse curriculum that would respond to their students. They had some grant money, and we helped them put that together. The thing about the LA and D.C. things was they didn't scale. They were very hands-on, and we wanted something that would scale better. So we launched an education technology pilot with about 30 publishers participating, and then COVID struck. And what we learned during COVID was no one knew where the students were going to be. There was a lot more interest in education technology. Did you need print? Did you need digital? You needed both. Did you need domestic? Did you need international? Yes. So there were all these content needs. And what we did was we essentially expedited the pilot. We launched the education continuity license, did some other things just to help respond to market conditions. And then we spoke to ed tech companies, including Symbi, about what a proper collective license would look like. And that's what we did. We issued one.
All right. Well, so Roy, you were talking about the very specific special types of content that we need to pull together and are in this license. So what do we know about the instructional implications in K-12 of this type of content?
In the classroom, there's a couple big buzzwords that have been going around for years, pre-COVID, personalized and adaptive learning. Now, let's take personalized for the moment. Most teachers who have been teaching for a while say, I've been doing personalized since the day I walked into the classroom, because I might have 3 students and all they want to read about are trains and they're at different levels. And a good teacher is always adapting stuff to their level. So that's personalization. I shouldn't have used the word adaptive. Now, adaptive is a more common recent term, which really relates to having some sort of software or algorithm that's helping to choose the content. At the end of the day, however, what you need is a lot of content, because you have different students with different needs and you want content that students respond to. So, one textbook for the whole country doesn't always hit the interests of the students. So you might want local newspapers or authors who look like the readers, people who reflect a diversity of opinions, a diversity of viewpoints. And you really want to pull all of this together and make it available, whether it's for ed tech or curriculum developers or even teachers.
All right, so for curriculum developers who are the audience we have with us today, Roy Kaufman, I guess the question they're going to have is, why work with CCC? Why work with Copyright Clearance Center rather than directly with individual publishers to get the kind of permissions that they need to use this content?
It's a fair question. We work with the publishers as their agents, so you can actually always go to the publisher individually and don't have to go to us. That's one of the features. However, as someone who used to work in a publisher with a permissions department, typically to get permission to use something, you're talking about 4 weeks, could be a 3-month cycle. And what's been happening, particularly in classrooms and in assessment, is very often you don't have that much time. You need to get something to market quickly, or maybe you're trying to respond to an RFP, so you want something that's fully baked. So that timeline is problematic. So that's one of the challenges, is how do you get rid of that timeline? The next thing is, let's say you need 300 pieces of permissioned content, which is not an unreasonable number. If you go to 300 different publishers, you're going to have 300 pieces of paper. And each of those pieces of paper are going to vary a little bit. They might say US only. They might say print only. They might say digital only. Emma's laughing. She's been living this. With us, you have one piece of paper. That piece of paper says what you have. You look at the paper, I have it, I don't have it. And typically, we hope it'll have what you need, because we did work with ed tech companies. We did work with curriculum developers and others to make sure we were gathering all the rights that were needed. And with Symbi, we had missed something. And Symbi took a look at this and said, hey, Roy, you missed something. And we fixed that nice and early. So really, it's about speed to market. It's about ease. And then the last point is, not everyone has an Emma house. If you're a curriculum developer or an ed tech company, or you might be focusing on education, which is what we want you focusing on. You might not know a lot about copyright. You might not have expertise in permissions. You might not know who to call. Just figuring out who to call can be a challenge. We do away with that. So it takes out all the guesswork. It takes out all of that stack of papers, what we sometimes refer to as the Swiss cheese of permissions. You have a consistent set of rights. You know before you've started investing in a piece of content that you can use it. You don't have to wait to find out before I create, learning lessons around this. You can do it, so you can create those lessons. And you don't have to waste effort.
All right. So Roy Kaufman, we appreciate hearing from you about the development of this license, and we're going to turn in just a minute to our guest, Emma House from Symbi. I want to remind our audience, though, that if they do have questions, and questions come with this topic, please use the chat for sharing them with us. We will ask the individual if you have a particular question for Roy or for Emma, and we would love to have that, because there will be plenty of time for questions at the end of the program. But Emma House, welcome again. And Symbi, we talked about, has a mission of reading for good. So tell us a little bit about how you work. It's an intriguing mix of online technologies that support literacy skills for children. It helps them learn by giving them a voice in their education, in fact, their own voice. So tell us more about that.
Sure, and thanks again for having me and for this opportunity to talk about both Symbi and why we think this license really works for us and really will take us to the next level when it comes to providing content. So Symbi is a dynamic reading platform that was developed by our co-founders to empower children to read more books and read them more often, but also to get excited about reading and to enjoy reading, to find the love of reading. And as you mentioned, we really want to empower children to read for good in both the context of lifelong learning, but also a desire to create positive social impact. And from a learning perspective, we know that through our evidence-based approach that Symbi doubles an elementary student's reading fluency in as little as 90 days. But what's really exciting is that from a social impact perspective, we know that the reading platform makes reading meaningful by enabling our students, our readers, to read along to and narrate a growing library of content from publishers from around the world. And it also provides seamless access to one of the world's largest repository of culturally diverse narrator accents. When children start reading on the platform, many of them are what we call learning readers. And as they work to become reading leaders on the platform, their voices can create global impact as they have the opportunity to add their voice and their narration of what they're reading to our library for others to read along to, listen to, and learn from. And at the same time, the parents and the teachers are gaining a wealth of knowledge and lots of insights about the kids developing reading skills, where they're at, analysing and assessing the reading journey and the reading skills of the student.
And that connection of the word and the voice, it's made possible by this remarkable technology that you use, but it's elemental in human interaction. And I really like that piece of it. So tell me about what Symbi is looking for when it comes to the kind of content that is found in CCC's ACLCI license. How does that content help to tie back to this company mission?
Yeah, and the license name is quite a mouthful, and I'm impressed you've mastered that. But we're always looking for content that helps build character, that inspires students to learn about the world that they live in, and not only that learning element as we talked about, but that can really develop an enjoyment. And as you said earlier, if you've got a kid that wants to read about trains all the time, we really want to be able to provide lots of content about trains. But we also want to make sure that there's content like about what's going on with climate change, for example. And we want to help build global citizens through the content that we facilitate access to, which is why we're both licensing content from publishers from around the world, but also very interested in the content that CCC publishers will facilitate access to. We're a partner with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and like CCC, we're also a signatory to the UN Sustainable Development Goals Publishers Compact. So we really do care about these things. And our goal is for learners to see themselves represented in the content that they're reading, whilst having the opportunity to learn about the global community. And so really for us, CCC publishers offer licensing for excerpts from news articles to non-fiction Q&A books to fiction pieces written by students to political analysis, and an engaging way at what's really important to us is at appropriate levels. And with this license, there really is a story for everyone, going back to our mission of making reading more engaging, and also helping educators achieve their mission, as Roy said, and that comes back to the ease of access, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But our mission is both to enable the students to read more and read engaging content, but help educators achieve their mission as well.
And as you say, so the mission is to serve the children. And so how is a license like this from CCC so helpful to you? What difference does it really make in terms of getting you to that mission sooner?
Well, Roy's already covered some of the brilliant points that the license really supports us with. So bringing the content together under one license and knowing that we can easily host that content, knowing we've got that permission already. But it does offer access to some of the best content possible for our global community of educators. And they will then have a variety of content available at their fingertips that they know is there, that they know they can use. It's a broad variety, and again, it adds to this personal learning. Through Symbi, they have the ability to assign content to individual students as well as do classroom reading. So if kids have got different interests or at different levels, there's all this content available for them at their fingertips to easily assign to the students. But equally, the kids have access to the platform to choose for themselves as well, and they can scroll through the library and choose what content is available for them as well. But really, the educators can provide meaningful reading experiences to their students through diverse, engaging, thought-provoking students that will motivate the students on their reading journeys. And as I say, being able to access these excerpts from CCC publishers' content will help empowering educators to share really digestible text, particularly for younger readers, that can then quickly assess their fluency and reading comprehension through our learning management and assessment solutions.
And in my house at Symbi, it's really important, of course, to be mindful of the world we live in today. And that is a world, sadly, that has been changed dramatically by the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things it's done is to really sort of shift learning almost, very quickly from based in physical spaces with a bit of online learning to now really a hybrid where every student is getting a bit of both. And so tell us about how this has driven a need for digital learning curriculum like the kind that Symbi provides. I mean, this couldn't be more timely for students around the world.
That's right, Chris. And as CCC were quick to respond to the needs of educators, and Symbi was in the perfect position to respond quickly as well to the needs of teachers and learners, both through formal education, but through home learning, home teaching, and through informal education as well. And right from the beginning of the pandemic, we've been there providing access to our global library, providing access to these educator tools as well. And especially for teachers that are trying to teach a classroom full of students and trying to understand where they are in their reading journey, the ability for students to read aloud, record their voice, upload it to the platform, for the educators to then go in and listen to the child reading and then provide feedback themselves via the platform for the child to then go in and listen to as well, has been very timely, as you say. And the platform allows students to read anytime, anywhere. It allows teachers to listen in to their students' narrations, as I said, and it really can create a sense of consistency and routine in literacy, whether in school or at home. I think it's clear, as you said, that schools are already operating in a hybrid environment and will continue to do so for some time. And Symbi can work really well across the physical, the hybrid, or the digital classroom environments. And so I think the need, as you said, for these digital learning platforms, it's never been more essential. And will continue to do so. I think this hybrid environment will continue, not only because of the world we're living in, but certainly for kids that have got some catching up to do, there's some leveling up to happen. Having a platform like this providing a global library of content like this under one umbrella is really timely. And certainly as far as the content goes, we've got some brilliant content from publishers from around the world already on the platform. And we're really excited to get going with the license and to start offering content from CCC publishers to really broaden our library's offerings.
Well, Emma House, I really like that idea that the digital piece of the hybrid learning environment is a way to help students catch up, to help teachers also keep an eye on their progress. That seems really important because online learning has gotten a knock or two for not really reaching students as well as it could. And this is a way to really kind of amp that up. It seems really important.
Yeah, and as I say, we really want to empower kids to enjoy reading and to get them excited about reading more. And by doing their narrations and uploading them, and after a quality control, they can be shared with our global library. Kids can earn volunteer hours for doing that. But every week they also receive what's called their impact report, which outlines all of the narrations that they've uploaded, and where kids around the world have listened in to their voice, narrating the stories and encouraging kids around the world to read more as well. And kids get really excited about that. It creates a bit of a competitive environment, but it really motivates them to read more and to do that for pleasure as well as for learning. I think is exciting, and it's really important for kids' education. We don't want kids to necessarily be taught reading and then not enjoy reading as well. And having that diverse array of content goes a long way to encouraging and empowering that as well.
All right. Well, Emma House at Symbi, thank you again. And let's turn now to any questions we have from our audience. You can use the chat box there, ask a question if it's particularly for Roy or for Emma. Let us know. And Emma was just talking about the impact report that students get. And our question from Mortimer, I would take first to Roy, which is about the CCC license and how it does reporting, what kind of reporting it offers to developers. So obviously with licensing, a question is often asked in rights and permissions about the number of uses. And so Mortimer is wondering, how does one track the number of users effectively across the license? Are there any models for tracking users and usages?
Well, we would work with our customers. We get the usage number from the customer. So, we're offering a license. There are some technological components, so you can get some access to some of the content, but we're not the platform by which users are going to interact. So in the case of Symbi, it would be Emma and her design team, her teachers, who will figure out what kind of content they would use, and then that would be served up on the Symbi platform. The license, then it's Symbi's responsibility. They acquire a license for a certain number of users, and it is their responsibility to tell us, hey, we've got a whole bunch more users, and then we adjust the license accordingly. And it's one of the things that we really like about this license, particularly in sort of younger startup ed tech companies, is you can buy the permissions you need, and if 2 days later you sign, Los Angeles County Unified or New York City Public Schools, you need a lot more permissions, but you don't have to acquire those in the hopes that you're going to get that client. Once you get the client, then you come back to us and we adjust your numbers and, be honest, adjust the fee so that you have all the permissions you need. This is something we had kind of modeled out in the assessment license with a lot of the Common Core consortia, because the numbers students were going up and down, and we needed a license that was flexible in that sense, because you never really know. But in the traditional publishing model, which I talked about, you always had this choice. Do I report the smallest number because that's what I know I want and risk infringing because I use more? Or do I report the largest number and then overpay and hope I get to that usage? And we eliminated that. So it's all about your actual numbers, and we can have a follow-up conversation to learn a little bit more about your use case if you'd like.
All right. Well, Emma House, I saw you nodding there. I mean,
Yeah.
is that true? I mean, is this license the kind of flexibility that kind of grows with you as you grow?
Absolutely. And being a technology company, data is extremely important to us, and it's what drives us and drives how we operate. And so we sell subscriptions to schools, to classrooms. And so we know how many users that we have. And we also, when we upload a piece of content to the platform, it's given a unique identification number. And what's great about our data is that we're able to provide how many times somebody has read that piece of content. So we can really track usage as well and work out what's working, what kids are engaging with, what educators are engaging with. And we can also track which country around the world it's being read in as well. Because we offer a pay-per-read model to our non-CCC publishers, then that data is really valuable. But yeah, it's data that we know we can share with whoever needs it. But yeah, we do track our subscribers, and that's the data that we can report back to CCC.
All right. Well, thank you indeed, Emma, for a great answer and a great introduction to the Symbi platform and the notion of reading for good. Emma House is Head of Publisher Relations for Symbi. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Roy Kaufman, my colleague at CCC. Good to see you, and thank you as well for your contribution.
My pleasure, Chris. My pleasure.
And for the audience, we really want to say we appreciate you joining us, and you should look in your email box soon for an email from CCC's Andrew Campana. He's on the team that helped develop this license, and he's going to share with you a link to a webcast recording of the program, and you're invited to share that with your colleagues. And Andrew and all of us at CCC would certainly love to hear from you if you have any questions or suggestions about our new license, the ACL-CI. For Haley Sund, our program director today, and myself, Chris Keneally, and everyone at Copyright Clearance Center, bye for now.